The road was empty, except for the sound of insects and the scrape of worn shoes against dirt. A young man stood alone at the crossroads outside of town, guitar hanging from his shoulder. The night air pressed down like a wet cloth, darkness stretching out in every direction. So the story goes, he came here looking for someone. A figure emerged from the dark road without footsteps, almost featureless against the night. The man said nothing at first, just reached for the guitar. Robert hesitated, but hunger is a powerful thing, so he handed it over. The stranger tuned the guitar pegs slowly, one string at a time, then handed it back. Robert gave the strings one swift strum, and the sound that rang out through the night was like nothing he'd ever heard before. He looked back up at the stranger in amazement, only to find that he had disappeared. Despite the damp heat of this night in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, an ice-cold chill ran down Robert's spine. He felt a sudden urge to leave this place. After all, the sun had gone down some time ago, and the hounds would be out soon.
He came down to the crossroads where the four roads meet. Lord, he came down to the crossroads where the four roads meet, with the dust around his ankles and the blood beneath his feet. Oh Lord, what's a poor man gonna do? Oh Lord, what's a poor man gonna do? Those hounds you're hearing, boy, now they're coming for you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Common Anomaly podcast. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 12. I'm your host, Stuart James. Joining me today is Clayton James. How's it going, brother?
It's going good. Great, actually. I'm nice and calm and relaxed and totally prepared for this episode.
That's funny, because
Yes.
you seemed quite the opposite. Pretty frazzled when you came in here today.
No,
You're all...
I never get frazzled.
Is it because you're about to have a house guest? You've got a visitor. Is Susie coming to town next week?
Yeah. She's arriving tomorrow evening. I've had a really busy week getting my place ready. Have her and the dog there. Also been editing away last week's episode.
Yeah, that's right. We got a little break coming our way. We're working ahead a little bit. Obviously, the audience won't notice anything. We've worked ahead of schedule, so you won't notice any break in our regular bi-weekly release schedule. But for us, nice to have a little break from the show. We should go for a beer after we're done recording today and just celebrate.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. This came up in a really weird way. We're going to be talking about the man and the legend of Robert Johnson, who, if you don't know that story, you're in for a treat. This is a great piece of American folklore. Do you want to tell the story of how this came about? How this idea was sparked?
Well, we were originally going to do something completely different this week. And then you gave me a lift home from work one day and you had CBC radio on.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Rich Turfry.
Rich Turfry
or Buck
was
65.
I always want to call him Rich Stir Fry. He was talking about Robert Johnson. I don't even remember what he was saying. He was introducing a song by Robert Johnson. And I said, that's what we should do for the episode.
Yeah.
Devil at the Crossroads, Robert Johnson. Yes, let's do that.
Absolutely. Really good idea. I'm glad that sparked that. And I've got mixed feelings about CBC. But I still follow CBC Radio 2. I like the music programming, and I grew up really loving things like the Vinyl Cafe and that sort of thing. Really helped me fall in love with storytelling. So I've got a soft spot for CBC, and Richard Fry is a great host. And yeah, he does these really great introductions of songs. And he started talking about Robert Johnson. And I don't know how familiar you are with that story. I remember going right back to being like 15 years old when I was a teenager and kind of first discovering music and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, and learning about Robert Johnson and being fascinated with his story. Let's introduce to the audience that not everyone might be familiar with his story. Blues singer and guitarist, from Mississippi.
Yeah.
Notoriously musically untalented, I guess. As a young man,
At least at the guitar.
yeah, he used to hang out at the what do you call them?
Just the local
clubs.
blues joints.
Yeah, juke joints, I think they called them, right? And he would watch the performers there, and when they were taking a break and having a drink or a smoke, he'd get up on the stage and he'd fiddle with their instruments and he'd try and play. And audiences had to beg him to stop.
Yes, he was embarrassingly bad.
Yeah, to the point where they banned him from getting on the stage.
Yeah.
But he was really focused, kind of traveled the countryside, busking and kind of being a traveling minstrel, a bit of a hobo. And he circles back to his hometown a few years later, and the difference in his ability was so profound. He was now a guitar master. He was playing it like no one else had ever heard before.
Yeah, way ahead of his time.
To the point where people thought there had to be some supernatural aspect to this. And the legend was that he had gone to a specific crossroads in the Mississippi countryside and made a pact with the devil and sold his soul for this ability to play guitar. And so, yeah, it's a great story. There's lots of movies about it. Let's start at the beginning. Let's dig into his tale.
All right, Robert Leroy Johnson. He was born May 8th, 1911, near Hazelhurst, Mississippi. He had kind of a chaotic childhood.
Yeah.
So his mother, Julia, she had Robert with this man named Noah Johnson. This man was not Julia's husband. This was an affair. Julia was actually married to this other fellow named Charles Dodds. Now, no one really knows what happened to Noah Johnson. There's no real biographical details available about his life. Apparently, Robert Johnson, he never met his biological father that we know about.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up growing up with Julia and Charles. Now, they had to leave Hazelhurst, Mississippi when Robert was very young. Charles, he got into some sort of disagreement with a white landowner, and Charles was chased out of town by a lynch mob.
Right.
And this family had to relocate to Memphis, where Robert spent his formative years, where he went to school. Now, Charles and Julia eventually divorced. Julia left. Robert, he lives with his father for most of his childhood. He moves back in with his mother in, what years is this? This was about 1920, who has now remarried this other fellow named Dusty Willis. So throughout Robert's life, he's known as Robert Dodds. When they fled to Memphis, they changed their last name to Spencer. He was known as Robert Spencer. When he moved back in with his mother, who was married to this Dusty Willis, he became known as Robert Dusty. And in his 20s,
I thought for sure you were going to say Robert Willis.
No, they actually named him Little Robert Dusty is what they named him.
Yeah.
Or what he was known as. In his 20s, he kind of learns the truth about his biological father, and he adopts the surname Johnson. That's how he's known for the rest of his life. He had an interest in music. Not much talent, though. He was actually known for being a pretty talented harmonica player, but not much else. As you said, he would hang out at these local blues joints playing the harmonica, but he really had a fascination with the guitar.
Yeah.
But no real training in it, no real talent for it. He knew kind of some basic things, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, he would try and get up on stage and do some stuff on the guitar, and he was just booed off stage, and they would beg him to stop. Embarrassingly bad. Anyway, in 1931, Johnson disappears. No one knows where he went. It's rumored, people would say, that he had gone off to find his biological father.
Right.
But no one was really sure where he disappeared to. It gets a little muddy. Some people say this was like a 6-month period. Some say it was a year and a half.
2 years. Yeah, a year to 2 years.
It's a little muddy, but upon his return, magically has this insane guitar ability. Like no one has ever heard before. And rumor starts spreading that he must have sold his soul to be able to play like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the legend started.
Well, and I really like hearing descriptions of how people account not just his ability, his technical ability to play guitar, but all of a sudden he came back and had this magnificent stage presence.
Yeah.
Where he just seemed to command the attention of the crowd while doing seemingly very little from the moment he got on the stage. And he would tune his guitar, pluck one note, then two, and then he would just go into an entire piece, and the crowd would just be so enraptured. It's almost like it felt like something supernatural was happening, like a spell was being cast over the crowd or the audience, and that's what feeds into this idea that there was something more than just an excellent performance going on. There was something supernatural at play.
Yeah. So this legend begins forming about this alleged encounter with the devil that Robert Johnson had late at night at this specific crossroads he went to. The minor details of it change, but the basic idea is he goes to these crossroads. The devil appears, taking the form of this really tall African-American man, and he takes Robert Johnson's guitar, he retunes it, he hands it back, and from that moment, Robert Johnson has the ability to play anything he wants on the guitar.
Yeah.
Anything at all. The price is Robert Johnson will live a doomed and short life, and his soul now belongs to the devil.
Yeah. And a doomed and short life it was. He died at the young age of 27 and actually became the first member of what eventually becomes known as the 27 Club.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with that. It's a list of primarily musicians. Some lists include actors or other entertainers that tragically died very young at the age of 27. On this list, you have Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin.
We've got Brian Jones, Jimi
yes.
Hendrix,
yeah.
Jim Morrison, Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most well-known ones. It's actually a much longer list, but the further down the list you go, the more obscure these musicians get.
Yeah.
But they all have one thing in common, is that they died suddenly at the age of 27, right at the peak of their careers.
Yeah.
Right at the peak of their abilities and their careers. Kind of became icons.
Yeah, and Robert Johnson himself, recording music not a lot of people were recording music, and he had kind of just become popular enough to, I think he only had one studio session.
He had two, and neither was in a proper studio. Both sessions were in hotel rooms, actually.
Yeah, that's right. And he only recorded 29 songs.
Yeah, 29 songs he recorded. There's multiple versions of each song, so he had 40 something recordings in total, but 29 songs. Interestingly enough, 2 of those songs were covers, so he actually only had 27 original songs.
Interesting.
I got 2 songs here. Milk Cow Calf's Blues, that was based on kind of an old blues standard.
Yeah.
It's not an original song. A song called Ramblin' on My Mind, which Robert Johnson is credited for, but later on it was discovered he did not write that song. That song was actually written by Robert Johnson's friend, Ike Zimmerman, fellow blues musician, who a lot of people think is who actually, if you don't believe all this devil at the crossroads business, a lot of people think it was Ike Zimmerman who tutored Robert Johnson in the guitar.
Kind of mentored him in that time that he was away. And I heard that Ike Zimmerman was known for practicing at night in graveyards.
Yeah, he had his own supernatural guitar ability. He said he gained his guitar ability by taking his guitar to cemeteries late at night and communing with all the dead blues musicians.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his guitar ability.
Well, he had said that he likes the quiet and silent, so you could hear kind of the notes ring out clearer in that environment. But also, there was this supernatural aspect where he would say he would play for the dead spirits, almost like he was getting feedback, like they were a practice audience for him, and he learned to listen. He learned to listen to the dead, and it kind of gave him this otherworldly ability. Perhaps Robert Johnson mentored under him, but it's funny that both stories, whether you look at it, have this supernatural aspect that goes beyond. But and a lot of people look to the songs as a source to validate the legend as well, because definitely the content of the lyrics of the songs seem to reinforce this story of meeting the devil at the crossroads. So I think the very first track on the re-release of his recordings that came about in the 60s, the very first track is Crossroad Blues. Yeah,
he's got this whole trilogy of songs that seem to retell that legend. Crossroad Blues and Hellhound on My Trail and Me and the Devil Blues.
Yeah.
through the lyrics, it created this mythology of that's how he got his ability. He went to the crossroads. He sold his soul to the devil, and now he feels like he's on the run from literal hellhounds that are after his soul.
Yeah. And I mean, I hear the skeptical argument is that those themes and motifs already existed in blues lyrical content to begin with. He's not the only artist that includes imagery like that, but his specific songs that he wrote do seem to back up the folklore around him as an artist.
Yeah.
So
now, it's important to note, Robert Johnson, he never really leaned into this legend himself.
Yeah.
He didn't make this claim himself. Other blues musicians made this claim about him.
Yeah.
That his ability seemed supernatural and he must have sold his soul. Robert Johnson, he did not claim any of this himself, but a lot of people have claimed that the subtext of his lyrics seemed to reinforce this mythology. Unlike that other blues musician named Johnson, Tommy Johnson,
yeah,
who also allegedly went to a crossroads late at night and made some sort of pact with the devil to be able to play anything he wanted on the guitar, and the price was his soul. Tommy Johnson really leaned into this. He actually started spreading this myth about himself to talk himself up. It was like a form of promotion for him.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people think that these two stories are conflated with each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, people are attributing the story about Tommy Johnson to Robert Johnson. I believe that story with Tommy Johnson, that was much earlier. That was like in 1914. But Tommy Johnson, he did not die at the age of 27. He actually lived a much longer life. He died in 1956 at the age of 60.
Okay. Did you watch the Crossroads movie I was telling you about?
I did not.
You didn't?
No.
I just watched it last night. That really highlights the different ways in which you and I research. You crack books and you get a lot of actual information. Where I'm just like, I'm going to watch this movie. I just turned on his music and listened to a bunch of his songs. But no, I loved this movie when I was a kid. It's just called Crossroads, and it's got Karate Kid, the actor who played Karate Kid. Ralph, is it Macchio or Macchio? I don't know. But Karate Kid, he stars in the movie. And he plays a young kid from Long Island he's going to Juilliard. He's a classical guitarist, but he's obsessed with the blues. And he discovers old Willie Brown is at an old retirement home. And Willie Brown had also made a pact with the devil. And so he's got this idea that there's a 30th song that Robert Johnson never recorded, and that Willie Brown knows this song, and he wants to get his hands on this song. And so he makes a connection with this character, Willie Brown, at the old folks' home, and makes a deal with him, like, you break me out of here, I want to go back home to Mississippi. I want out of this old folks' home. You get me out of here, I'll go with you to Mississippi, and I'll teach you Robert Johnson's 30th song. But really, he's just trying to go back he wants to find the crossroads again, because he wants to confront the devil again and convince him to tear up this agreement, to tear up the contract for his soul.
Oh, interesting.
And a classic kind of duel, a guitar duel ends at the end of the movie. But there's a funny factoid for you, and this is why I was really hoping you'd watch it. I had no idea about this actually until I just watched it last night. But at the beginning of the movie, the very beginning of the movie opens with kind of a little vignette of Robert Johnson going to a recording studio to record his music. And guess who the actor that plays Robert Johnson? Tim Russ.
Tim Russ.
Who is Tuvok from Star Trek Voyager. Isn't that nuts?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I was wild. I was like, that's not... Oh, that totally is. That's Tuvok. There's a Star Trek connection here. I never thought we'd have a Star Trek connection in this episode. But there it is. Anyway, that's my little aside. I'm going to try putting cards. I never put cards on YouTube. I'll put a little link up to that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I going to talk about? You completely distracted me.
I totally
with this
derailed you.
Tim Russ thing.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a little bit about the mythology just of the Crossroads and maybe hoodoo magic and how that plays into it? Because this idea of making a deal with the devil, making a contract with the devil, that goes beyond this story. That goes beyond Johnson himself. Do we want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, you want to talk about Faust now?
Sure, yeah.
Well, there's actually many versions of Faust. I believe it's an old opera. But the version I'm most familiar with is the F.W. Murnau version, the 1920s silent film.
Dr. Faust? Or Dr. Faustus?
No, it was just called Faust.
Oh.
This is a German silent movie. F.W. Murnau, he's the same director that made Nosferatu.
Okay.
You haven't seen it. Of course you haven't seen it.
I've seen Nosferatu.
No, Faust.
Oh.
You've seen Faust?
No, I'm kind of familiar with Faust through theater stuff, but I've never watched
I believe you can watch it for free on YouTube. We should put a link up. But anyway, this movie opens with the devil, Mephisto. He's making a wager with an archangel that he can corrupt the soul of this man named Faust, this very respected member of his community. Okay. You know, he's a doctor, he's a scientist, he's a healer. The devil's making a wager that he can corrupt this man. So what Mephisto does is he inflicts this terrible plague on this village where Faust lives. Faust, he's a man of science, and he's working really hard to try and cure this plague, but he can't do it. All his friends and family are dying. Faust goes into this despair and he burns all his books.
Okay.
But there's one surviving page from his library that he's just burned, and it's instructions for summoning the devil. Apparently he'll be able to gain great power if he can summon the devil. And the instructions are to go to a crossroads.
Yeah.
This is made in the 20s. To a crossroads, recite this invocation, and the devil will appear and grant him great power. And for a film made in the 20s, like, go and watch it. This is actually an incredibly eerie scene. When Faust goes to the crossroads and he does this invocation, he summons the devil, and the devil appears and tips his hat. This is the moment where things got a little too real for Faust, and he runs away because he's so terrified.
Yeah.
But no matter which way he runs from this crossroads, he just comes to another crossroads where the devil is waiting for him,
right,
and tips his hat at him again.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leans to the idea of not this specific crossroads itself that Johnson visited, but any crossroads. A crossroads being a liminal space.
It's a liminal space. We did a whole trilogy of episodes on liminal spaces last year.
Yeah, that's right.
They're places where the veil is thin between worlds.
Exactly. And it's really the ritual and the intention you bring into that intersection, into that liminal space, which allows the contact. I think the Backrooms movie is just about to come out, isn't it? Didn't I see it's coming out like next week? It's like end of May?
I'm not sure when it comes out.
I've
but
seen
it's going to be soon.
Yeah, I've seen ads for it popping up. So yeah, that's all. We did a whole other episode on the Backrooms as part of a little mini arc we did on liminality. Mm-hmm. I'll try and link back to that as well. Give that a listen. Hoodoo is kind of the American South African spiritualism.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pagan spiritualism. Think of voodoo or witch doctors, that sort of thing. Mojo, which they had these bags, these little satchels that you'd fill with gems and bones, oils and herbs kind of thing. It is very much analogous to like a medicine pouch or a medicine bundle in North American indigenous folklore. And so the idea is you'd find a crossroads, the crossroads representing a weak point, as you say, a liminal space. And it's the ritual you perform there to evoke contact with demons or spirits. And then, you can enter into arrangements with them. I find the idea of the contract really interesting. There's always, when you're dealing with an entity from beyond the veil that's, let's say, a lower caste entity, something demonic, it's always transactional.
There's a legal framework there.
That's right, which involves you having to consent and align your purpose to that of this other entity. This even goes into modern abduction folklore when we look at alien abductions, or even NDEs, because there's this subset of accounts when people have near-death experiences where on the other side they encounter gray aliens that exist on that plane. Mm-hmm. They enter agreements with you, and that's why you get abducted, is because in that space between life and death, they're able to interact with that plane. They'll ask you to enter an agreement with them for when you're alive or when you're in your next life to be abducted and experimented on in this realm.
Well, that's a very occult thing. that seems to be a common thread through all these stories of demonic possession. You kind of have to let the devil in.
That's right. Yeah.
The vampire has to be invited in.
Yeah.
If your demonic possessions happen to people that have opened themselves up to these things, Robert Johnson, you look at the 27 Club, this list of musicians that all died at the height of their abilities, all at the age of 27. And Robert Johnson, he's the one that supposedly signed like a legal agreement with the devil.
Yeah.
So the story goes. What about the other ones? Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Joplin, Morrison, Cobain, Winehouse. What did they have in common? Did they sign a legal pact with the devil? I don't know. There's no stories about it, but they do have something else in common. Remember how I was talking a few episodes ago? I was telling that story of this psychic medium, and he went into a bar and he was looking at the people at the bar, the people that looked like, the bar flies. They were always there.
Yeah.
And he could see these black entities attached to them, sucking the life out of them.
Yeah.
What did these people have in common? Addiction. All these musicians had addiction in common. Jimi Hendrix died of an overdose. So did Janis Joplin. Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, they all had substance abuse problems.
Yeah.
That some would say opening yourself up to some sort of demonic influence.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the route you went. I think some people, if you looked at the biographies specifically of some of those artists, I think that might be contested in terms of what was the level of usage and abuse of drugs. And specifically, you mentioned Kurt Cobain and Jimi Hendrix. I think someone could make an argument against that. But that's a story for another time. My mind went very much the same road, but more with the music itself. Mm-hmm. In Robert Johnson's time, blues was looked on by Christians as the devil's music. Mm-hmm. Because it was associated with bars, with abusing alcohol and these nightclubs where you're committing sins.
Just a quick note, Robert Johnson, when he returned with this magical guitar ability,
yep.
And people say he sold your soul, that wasn't the first time he'd been accused of selling his soul. I believe it was his own mother said something to that effect, saying you've sold your soul. She wasn't talking about some specific pact he made with the devil. She was saying he sold his soul because he was playing,
because he was so obsessed with the music.
He was playing blues music.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing gospel music.
Yeah.
He was playing popular blues music. He sold his soul.
Yeah, and blues is the root of rock and roll. Mm-hmm. And definitely rock and roll went through that phase of development, the 50s and 60s, even all the way through the 70s, where people looked at it as having a negative impact on young people's psyches. Mm-hmm. Because it was dissonant, it was angry. Yes, there was a lot of association with alcohol and drug abuse and just behaving badly, generally, being unchristian. Mm-hmm. What if there's something to that? Could look at the basis of the universe being based on sound. I think the Bible even says, God spoke and the universe was born, something like that. But it's sound. It's sound waves that created the word. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we know if you look at any form of spirituality, music is at the root of ritual, right? Mm-hmm. You have drumming and chanting to induce ecstatic experiences and altered states of consciousness so that you can commune with other spirits.
Yeah,
so
like
what if
a shaman.
Yeah,
like a shaman.
Exactly.
How does their magic work? What are they doing when they're performing their magic? They're usually chanting and drumming, getting themselves into a trance while doing it.
That's right. And this brand of music as well does kind of lean into that dark occult nature. I think right away, Screamin' Jay Hawkins and I Put a Spell on You. Mm-hmm. If you go, there's some fantastic video of some of his old performances. They're very theatrical, right? Where they actually bring him up on stage in a coffin. And then a witch doctor would do a ritual to bring him back to life like a zombie. And the performance would start, right? It's very theatrical. And witch doctors do the same thing. We've talked before on the show about this idea that the performative aspect of a ritual is what creates the belief in it for mm-hmm. the crowd, which has a magic to it, right? Mm-hmm. So what if it's the sound itself? What if there's actually something to that idea that it's this popular music, this dissonant popular music, is actually impure in some way? and can damage the soul.
I'm going straight to hell. Because I actually really love all of these artists.
I know, right? I know, it's the best music.
Yeah. But why 27?
I have no idea.
What is the significance of 27?
I don't
They
know.
all died at 27. Robert Johnson and his 27 original songs. What is the significance?
I'm sure you're about to tell me.
I do have something here.
Okay.
Forgive me, I'm a little scatterbrained today, so I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff, and I hope it makes sense.
A lot of stuff. I love it. Let's hear the stuff.
27 in numerology. What is the significance of 27? Well, if you take 2 and 7 and add them together, you get 9. And 9 is a very important number in most occult or spiritual systems.
Sacred geometry.
Yes, 9 is the
3, 6, and 9.
Yeah. 9 is the threshold, it's the first, it's the last number before things roll over and you go to, another decimal spot.
Yeah.
It's the threshold, it's the boundary. It symbolizes completion and wisdom gained, but with a price. Interesting. 27 is also 3 cubed.
Okay.
It's sometimes called the cube of 3 in Kabbalah, which represents the boundary and karmic reckoning and confrontation with mortality. The cube of 3. Interesting. We're talking about cubes again.
Yeah.
We're talking about Saturn again.
Yeah.
What about Saturn? Astrologists say that on your 27th birthday, for most people, it varies between your 27th birthday and your 29th, depending on what year you were born. But for some people, on your 27th birthday, Saturn will occupy the same place in the sky from the perspective of Earth that it occupied on the date of your birth.
Huh. Interesting.
And again,
it's a completion of a cycle almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is seen as a time of reckoning.
Okay. So if you had lived a life maybe that was impure, like you're arguing, maybe that's the time of reckoning for these people. Their life ends as a consequence of the way they've lived their life to that point. Is that what?
Well, that's one way of looking at it, or it might just be when the bill comes due. The bill on this pact comes due.
Right.
And we've talked about Saturn before. We've got a whole episode on Saturn. It's great. You should go back and listen to it. But what was Saturn? To the Romans, it was the god that devoured children. Look at these people that all died so young. 27, that age is often seen as, you're still kind of a kid at heart.
Yeah.
But, the mask of adulthood is really starting to set in.
Yeah.
It is kind of a boundary year between young adult and actual adult.
Yeah.
And
things do change after 30, don't they?
Yeah, quite a bit. I'm going to be 40 soon. What's that going to be like?
Oh my God, it sucks, Clayton.
Oh God. Okay, thanks. I feel so much better. Anyway, 27 in the Saturnian sense. You could see it as the moment when the child star.
Yeah.
Because these were all just kids, really, relatively. Yeah. The child star, they are either transformed or they're frozen in time forever as an icon. You look at this list of names, these people are all icons.
Absolutely.
Kind of frozen in time at the moment of their death.
Yeah.
You think of Amy Winehouse. You imagine this young woman with the thick eyeliner and the big hair and the really bluesy voice. Yeah. Same with Jimi Hendrix. You picture him, with the big afro and the hippie clothes, burning his guitar on stage. Yeah. These people are iconic. They are frozen in time forever.
That's right. And because of when they pass, they never get to mature beyond that point. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Does that mean they've been captured by the god Saturn?
Well, that's what Saturn does. To the Gnostics, Saturn represents the demiurge, the false god of the material world that keeps us trapped in this constantly looping illusion.
Right.
Frozen in time, in a sense, preventing us from ever truly developing into our potential.
Right. Does Saturn, is the idea behind that is kind of like a matrix-like illusion you're describing. Mm-hmm. Could it just be recycling souls? What if Robert Johnson, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, what if, like you say, they're just kind of the same soul, the same story recycled again and again throughout our history?
That again
entrapping us.
Gets into our conversation about, like, from a while back, about the cult of Saturn. You know, what's it said about making a pact with the god Saturn, who is also often, you know, conflated with the demiurge, or in the Christian sense, the devil, the reaper, the lord of the harvest. Once you make a pact with Saturn, your soul belongs to Saturn forever.
Yeah.
In this life and in every other life you will live for all of eternity.
Wow. That's dark.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
That's fascinating. I didn't think we'd wind up back at Saturn worship on this episode. But it kind of makes sense. You're right.
It seems to crop up everywhere.
Yeah.
Like we were saying in that episode, and we've said a few times since, once you see the symbolism...
Yeah, it connects to so much.
Once you recognize the symbolism, it starts popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely everywhere.
So what do you think? Do you think there can be any truth to this legend? Or is it just interesting academically that it connects to all these occult views of the world? What do you think? Have you listened to Robert Johnson's music? Do you feel anything otherworldly there? What do you think about the story? Is it true or is it folklore?
I mean, do I think Robert Johnson literally went to a crossroads and literally got down on his knees and the literal devil appeared to him and they signed this contract? I don't know.
You say that every time. Come on, take a stance on something, Clayton.
I take a stance on quite a bit, thank you very much. But I wasn't there. I don't know. Even just this guy's biography gets pretty muddy.
Yeah,
you know, did he disappear for 6 months or was it 2 years? Who knows? Records aren't that good.
Yeah.
But I think I think myths can hold a kind of truth to them, whether they literally happened or not.
Yeah, and like I was so clumsily trying to describe earlier, I think there's magic to music. I think there's a magic to sound. I think there's a reason it evokes such strong reactions and emotions in us. Mm-hmm. And it is baked into every form of ritual, both spiritual and magical traditions. There's always music at the root of those rituals and those invocations. I think there's something to that. And I think there's something with these, like you say, iconic musicians that hold such an important place in our psyche and what they represent. Mm-hmm. And there is a deeper truth there, if not a literal truth, in this exact story. Yeah. I don't know. I can envision. I don't know. When I was younger, I really liked this story. I really liked the idea of it. Maybe there was a romance about it, about the American South. And this time in history, and imagine this person traveling about, you know, with a guitar slung on their back and having this otherworldly encounter in a liminal space out in the Mississippi Delta. Yeah, there's something about that was really appealing for some reason.
It's a really romantic image, but I mean,
but disturbing and off-putting at the same time, right?
But you know, the truth. You know, regardless of whether this pact literally happened, here's some truth. All these people, the 27 Club, in a figurative sense, there was a pact and there was a price. Because you could say about each of these people, Robert Johnson, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, all of them, you could say, in a sense, their own fame and their own success is what killed them. The music that made them great and made them so loved is what killed them. I mean, Robert Johnson, how did he die?
Well, he was like you said, it's a little muddy. But
he was playing the most commonly believed story about Robert Johnson's death is he was playing at some sort of fair, and he was very well known at this time. Everybody loved him. He was getting quite, at least locally, famous. But you know, he was also a renowned flirt with the ladies, and people got jealous. Other men got jealous, and it's alleged that at this performance afterwards he was flirting with another man's wife. The other man got jealous and offered him a drink, which was poisoned. Yeah. A couple days later, Robert Johnson dies in absolute agony after being bedridden and sick for 2 days.
Yeah, and I believe even what was it? Someone had warned him from taking the drink
Yeah.
or something, or was it a drink, or was it like a bottle of whiskey? I heard he was passed a bottle of whiskey, and
In
like
some
even the
stories,
bartender
in
tried
some
to slap it out of
stories,
his hand.
the stories vary. In some stories, it's a bottle of whiskey that's being gifted to him. In some stories, it's just a drink. In
other stories, he gets shot.
Yeah,
like it's muddy.
But in every version of the drink story, you know, his friend who is there slaps the drink out of his hand,
Yeah.
being like, "Do not accept a drink from someone. You know, if you haven't seen the bottle opened yourself, don't accept that drink."
Yeah.
And
But he ignores this morning.
yeah,
anyway.
Robert Johnson says, "Don't ever slap a drink out of my hand," and he takes another one.
Yeah.
And supposedly it was poisoned.
Yeah.
You know, the jealousy caused by his own fame
Yeah.
is what killed him. His own fame killed him. Same with the rest of these characters, often driven to excess by their own fame.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So
It makes a lot of sense.
yeah, what I was getting at is, in a figurative way, there was a pact, and there was a price to be paid for it.
Well, even you could say, well, what if that's not the devil's bargain? What if the devil's bargain is actually the trade-off you make by devoting yourself to your craft of music so entirely? Because even in Robert Johnson's story, his wife died in childbirth. He had married.
Yeah.
He took a wife. I forget what year and all this, but he had taken a wife, and he had left home. He had left, his pregnant wife at home with his mother, I believe. Mm-hmm. And he was going to go travel to make music and make money to bring home. And he came back, a year later, only to discover that his wife and child had both died in childbirth. And he was blamed. They were like, you should have been here. The reason this happened is because you were out, indulging in this music, and this horrible thing happened, right? And yeah, maybe he just got so good because that's all he was doing 24/7 was traveling around, performing constantly. And yeah, of course you're going to improve. Mm-hmm. Of course, in a short amount of time, you can go from being a really shitty guitarist to being an amazing guitarist in the space of a year or two if you're entirely devoted to it.
Yeah, I mean,
but
depending
artists
on...
talk about how their devotion to their art and their craft creates a sacrifice in other areas of their life. Other areas of their life they have to neglect because of that level of obsession and devotion, mm-hmm. right? Which creates the fame and success they get to experience and the adoration. But what did they trade? What was the exchange they made for that success,
I mean, their soul, obviously. So the story goes.
Maybe it's all just a metaphor for that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Am I just rambling on? I'm a little off today, too.
Oh, that's okay. It should be noted that depending on where you're at with the guitar, because, I've played guitar on and off for many, many years. I haven't played in a while recently. But, you can go from being an embarrassingly bad guitarist to being pretty good in not that long of a time. I mean, depending on where you're at. I think every guitarist has this little bag of tricks they learn, especially self-taught ones like me. You learn little things here and there, and you still suck. You still suck, but you're picking up little things. And sometimes it just takes learning one little thing that ties it all together.
Right.
And all of a sudden...
the floodgates open.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like a floodgate opening. I thought it was an interesting detail in this story about Robert Johnson at the Crossroads when he meets the devil. This detail is always in there. The devil takes his guitar and retunes it and hands it back to him.
Yeah.
I have here a book of transcriptions of Robert Johnson's music. You know what I found when I was looking through this book?
What's that?
Pretty much every song is in an alternate tuning. Like, no two songs have the guitar tuned the same way. In order to just play through this, you would have to retune your guitar every single song. Huh. And I thought that was an interesting detail. Maybe he didn't literally make a bargain with the devil, and that's what enhanced his ability. Maybe he just figured out alternate tunings.
Right.
Maybe he just figured out how to play in open tunings.
Right.
And that's why he was suddenly so good.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I think there's a truth in the myth, regardless of whether it actually literally happened.
It makes me think of not a member of the 27 Club, but an interview I heard about with Billy Corgan. Is it Corgan? Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah,
guy?
that's the guy.
And I remember him talking about in an interview way back about how something kind of just unlocked. You know, he'd been writing songs, he had his band, but they didn't become successful until there was kind of this moment where he was writing songs and everything just kind of clicked. And everything about kind of pop music, how to write a song, the chords to use, just kind of clicked into place. And he had this kind of sudden understanding of how to make a hit song, you know, out of his music.
Yeah.
I saw a recent interview of him where he's talking about encounters he's had with like shadow people and that sort of thing. And yeah, he's not a member of the 27 Club, but there's this aspect that's popped up of a seeming connection to something dark and supernatural in his life. So maybe I'm just drawing threads. I don't know. You were talking about that, and it just popped in my head all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, a lot of musicians, even outside of this club of 27, a lot of musicians have been accused of making pacts with the devil for their abilities. Even going back into,
or just indulging in occult practices,
yeah,
and stuff in order. But
even going back into like classical music. What's the name of the guy? Had it here.
Oh, the violinist.
Yes, yeah. The violinist. Just a second. I'm pulling it up. Niccolo Paganini, 1782 to 1840, Italian violin virtuoso, often called the devil's violinist, for his supposedly flaming eyes, inhuman ability to play the violin. Even if one of his strings broke, he could still contort his body into some sort of weird position and still keep playing. And
oh, wow.
Apparently, like, inhumanly good at the violin. And apparently, so the story goes, his very last act as he was on his deathbed was to send away a priest that had come to read him the last rites. He didn't want to hear them.
Oh, wow. You'd think, though, if you'd made a deal with the devil, you would want that priest there and to give you the last rites. That's your one shot out of it. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know, you
unless he himself was possessed or something.
You generally don't get out of a devil's bargain.
No, but if there was a way, you would think it would be the priest, you know, blessing you and giving you last rites, right? Maybe. But what if he was possessed by a demon?
Could be.
That could be.
Could be. The devil seems to love musicians.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah, the devil's got the best tunes, apparently.
Okay, all right. Well, we're getting pretty long in the tooth here. Maybe we should wrap it up.
All right.
Okay. Do you have any final thoughts before we go? Or let's just wrap this up and get on vacation already?
Well, don't end it like that.
Okay.
You know, let's bring it back to Faust. I mean, in most versions of the story, things don't end well for Faust. You know, he dies and his soul belongs to the devil. F.W. Murnau's version, the silent movie, things actually end on a more hopeful note, because you know what what Faust finds, the one way you get out of that devil's bargain, because Faust makes this devil's bargain. He gains all this power. He's able to cure this plague. Mm-hmm. He's given immortal youth and infinite knowledge, and you know he basically just devotes his life to pleasure from then on. Yeah. Always with the devil watching over his shoulder, beaming with pride on how much he's corrupted this Faust. But you know what brings Faust out of it? You know what can defeat the devil's bargain?
What?
That's love.
Oh, God. It's just love. That's how you're going to end the episode? Love is the answer?
You don't like that?
Please. Oh, God. Yeah, that's cringe.
Fine, we'll just cut that out. We'll end the episode on a super dark note.
Yeah. Let's
put everyone in a bad mood.
Yeah. That's what I want. Yes. That's what I want.
Okay.
Okay, let's leave it there. That was fun. Another fun episode. Great conversation. I'm really glad we covered this.
Yeah.
Really fun story. Takes me back to my own childhood and my own discovery of music and pop music. Mm-hmm. So thanks for having that idea. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
I have no clue what we're doing next, but we've got a break to mull it over.
Oh yeah, we got lots of time to cook something up.
So I hope you enjoy your vacation. I know I'm going to enjoy a little bit of a break, and when we'll come back fresh, bushy-tailed, ready to go, and with some more episodes. So everyone, enjoy the next few weeks, and good night.
Good night.